What's the thing that commonly happens that gets in the way that you often are like, okay, let's clear that out first? Like, what's that thing?
Your average researching, they're the first-time buyers who know nothing. And their biggest mistake is to get to HGTV first and start thinking about all that and not thinking about their finances. The people who have things a little bit more together, exactly what you said. I could guarantee you, if you went and surveyed 100 first-time home buyers who said they found their agent on a Google search, 98 of them would, if you asked them, break down how many hours you've been researching, how do I get the best interest rate? Break down how many hours you've been researching, how do I look for a home? Now break down how many hours you spent vetting and interviewing your realtor. Number one mistake.
But this is my house, Mommy. So what I asked Mr. Kringle for, it is, I know it is.
Welcome to The Pursuit of Home, coming to you from New York City. This is real people buying real estate and their unique journey to get there. We share the tips, tricks, and frameworks to help you navigate the bumps in the road that you won't see on reality TV or social media, and which no one has talked about until now. These are the emotional, psychological, ethical, and even spiritual challenges you're more than likely to encounter yourself. Learn from experts who've been there and hang out with me, Scott Harris, your host, who's helped thousands of people buy homes in Manhattan over the last 2 decades. Welcome to The Pursuit of Home, where we explore the emotional and practical aspects of finding and creating a place to call home. Today, we're joined by David Sidoni, the founder of How to Buy a Home, which is a platform that's revolutionizing the first-time home buying experience for over 4,000 people who used to be renters. David has helped these people make the leap to home ownership, and his approach is what inspired me so much because it's empowering buyers with the right knowledge, tools, support. It's what we're doing here at The Pursuit of Home too. So I'm really excited to speak with David. David's been in the industry for 20 years, and in that time, he's seen the struggles, like I have, of what first-time buyers face. He's dedicated his career to changing the way we approach buying homes, making it easier, smarter, maybe less overwhelming. So in this episode, we're going to be discussing everything from overcoming common myths about home ownership to navigating credit challenges and how David's platform is empowering you, if you're renting out there, to become homeowners with the right knowledge and guidance. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. Very excited to talk to a fellow advocate for these deserving people out there.
You know, I can't believe when I came across you, David, I was like, oh my God, this is my kindred spirit. So I can't wait to have this conversation in more depth. I mean, when you got into the real estate world or first got into it, did you ever imagine that you'd be running a platform dedicated to helping renters become homeowners?
No, it was definitely a long journey to get there. When you're in a real estate, you're given a roadmap from the brokers and all the people who run the industry. And I'll give you the big punchline right at the top here. About 11, 12 years into the industry, I'd seen enough of the back end to realize that there was, for lack of a better word, a corruption in the business model. And in that business model, the people who were getting screwed the most were the first-time home buyers. So all their confusion, all their just desperate desire for clarity, I always quote Good Will Hunting. It's not your fault. It's not your fault. It truly isn't. And, there are 3 million licensed real estate agents and 1.3, 1.4 million listings. That's all you need to know. The system's broken.
Yeah, what was the turning point for you when you realized like this little segment? And by the way, like, I hear you loud and clear. First-time home buyers need the most hand-holding, and they're getting perhaps the least attention. They're getting kicked. If some team out there is advertising on Zillow, they're giving the first-time home buyers to the least experienced person on the team.
They need the most.
And they need the most love. So when did you realize this was the thing that really spoke to you?
Well, I started with my shock value statement, but it really comes from a place of empathy. And I started in the business in 2006. I'm in Southern California near Disneyland. The market started to shift for us about a year before the big crash of the stock market in 2008 with the subsequent real estate crash. And so I was working by referral That was the way I was building my business, being a kid who grew up here. And as the market started to crash, suddenly I was working with hundreds of employees from Disneyland. I think right now we're at like 287 transactions with people who work at Disneyland. And I did that all as the market crashed, 2008 to 2013, and it kept going. And then I did everything you're supposed to do as a realtor. I built a team. At one point, I had a partner. We were doing massive amounts of transactions every year. I had lots of buyer's agents. And it was about 12 or 13 years in, my wife looked at me and said, "You're only happy when you work with the people from Disneyland." So it was at that point, realizing that was mostly first-time home buyers, that I really looked at the business and I said, there's a giant hole in this industry, and the status quo is to just serve them with brand new agents. 87% of real estate agents quit in 5 years.
I quote that stat all the time.
I'm adding to it 71. I've heard 71 or 74% of agents sold 0 homes in 2024. So that 87% stat, do you know why we quote that all the time? And do you know what's so sad and so telling about it? Do you know where we got that stat? From the National Association of Realtors. It comes to us from the people who understand and could have made this different. Well, I realized I wasn't going to, can't fight City Hall. So using the platform, I decided to just educate as many people as I can. My wife really made me understand that that was important to me. And so using the empathy and compassion that I really have, where I really feel like these people are just getting run over, wanted to show them a better way. And a big part of that, especially where I'm in Southern California, is taking the financial aspects and kind of turning it on its head. And that's when they become emotionally more understanding that this makes sense to them. It's something I call a rent replacement strategy. You're not trying to figure out how to buy a home.
It's so practical.
Yeah.
What you're saying, and it's so inspiring, but it's inspiring, but it's in language like, okay, I can do this. So I want to unpack this, right? I want to unpack how you've helped over 4,000 people, you say escape the rent trap, but can you explain what you mean by that? Because it's, I know you're being provocative.
Sure.
But at the same time, you need, in order to have liftoff, to get people off the couch, you do have to be a bit provocative to motivate some people. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm not in my 20s and 30s. The average age of my first-time home buyer is there. So I share my own story. In 1991, I moved from Orange County to Hollywood, and I was in a movie. So I was making decent money. From 1991 to 1998, I spent $104,000 in rent. I could have bought a condo with $5,000 down and paid the exact same thing. In today's dollars, that would be $234,000. In 1998, when I moved back down to Orange County, I got a $1,500 security deposit back. Instead of having $234,000 in today's dollars, the $104 back then, invested into something. So the tearing part of the industry is just like the initial, hey, just so you know, I'm here for you. And then the rest of it is moving into that position of explaining to people, the old time gurus are giving you advice that's going to keep you renting for 5 years. I have the math if you want to see it, and I've talked about it on my podcast, where we can look at creating a rent replacement strategy and using that large chunk of money every month, as opposed to spending that for 5 years while you're trying to save up 20%. The math behind that never loses.
In the abstract, it sounds awesome. I want to zoom in today, because there are big challenges today that home buyers face. They didn't face 3-4 years ago when rates were a little lower. Give me an example of a home buyer in the last, it could be the last year or two, right? Because rates have been high, that have used, give me an example of how they use this rent replacement strategy. And by the way, can you level set for us? What's the average purchase price for these homes, the people that you're helping?
I use the national average. Our average purchase price is right now at $487,000. But because I started as a podcast, we've helped dozens of people in San Jose at an average of 1.3%, because they're tech people. So we help the people who have a good chunk saved, maybe are in their mid to late 30s, and we help them create a rent replacement strategy by using a lower down payment option, explaining the myth of PMI, the negative myth against it. I have a whole podcast called PMI is a Privilege. So
PMI is private mortgage insurance, right?
That is correct. A lot of times people look at the 20% down to buy a home, and that's the threshold, because why am I going to pay this extra insurance? That doesn't make any sense. Well, it usually happens to me with people when they're at 800,000, but I'll do it at 400,000. You're trying to buy a $400,000 home, so you're trying to save up to $80,000 down. Now you're sitting at 10% down at $40,000, and you're going to wait to save another $40,000 because you have heard you absolutely have to avoid PMI. PMI on a $400,000 house, if you have decent credit, could be under $100. So
it's an extra $1,200 a year.
Correct.
So that you can buy now when maybe prices are going to be lower than they are in the however long it takes you to save another $40,000. And
I'm going to be fair, because I'm not just hyperbolic, and I get all the haters in the comments. You're just another dumb realtor telling me that you want to, buy a house now. You're going to pay an extra 10% in your loan. So, but even if you if you're putting 20% down, you're only paying on 80% of 400,000. If you're putting 90% down, if you're putting 10% down, you're paying. So, okay. So the PMI is 100. So let's say that extra 10% is going to cost you another $400 a month. In what your payment would it be on a 20% down versus 10% down? $500 a month. Cool. When you're at $40,000, if you're trying to save up 80 for $500 a month, you're giving yourself the privilege to become a homeowner and not pay the average $2,100 a month in rent. And if it takes you 3 years, 4 years to save up the other $40,000, sure, you're paying an extra $500 a month on if you buy a home, but that's, $26,000 or $25,000 a year for that you're paying in rent that you can now put towards your future, your stability. And again, being here in Southern California, I have to figure out those creative options all the time. But that's why I coined it a rent replacement strategy, because everyone that does the comparisons, they're looking at, well, why would I pay $2,100? I'm paying $21. Why would I pay $28? And I go, because $2,100 a month goes to nothing. And now you get to use your most expensive line item every single month.
Why do you think it's such a game changer for people who are stuck? Like, what rent replacement strategy is it? Just like, it's like, oh my God, you're giving me a light at the end of the tunnel here, especially today. But it just, as somebody who, I'm just coming at this with like fresh eyes. Okay. Yeah. I'm like a 35-year-old person who's been saving a lot of money. 70% of buyers are coming at this with a partner, and they just want to own something. And they don't want some realtor to say, oh, you got to put 20% down, because it's been hard enough for me to save the 10%. Now you're telling me I got to save another 10. This is never going to happen. I'm never going to get out of my parents' basement, whatever and you're like, no, here's the flashlight. Like, let's go into this. And you've done it. Now, is the platform, you've helped 4,000 people in less than 20 years. That's by my math, about 200 a year. You're not doing all of that yourself. So how do those transactions, do you have other people that you're referring to that are getting this closed? Do you have people, like, what does that actually look like? Are you vetting agents to work, who are like, you put them through a training program? What does that look like to make sure that they're doing really great work with these first-time home buyers?
Great question. And you said the magic word, vetting. In 2019, I started the podcast, and that's when I developed, I've always had a referral system. Being in Southern California and our freaking taxes, people move out and they're like, forget it. So I've got some great relationships with people in Texas and New York when my California people want to get the heck out of here. Well, I should say Texas and Florida when they're really trying to dodge the taxes. So what I did was, when I started the podcast, the goal was, I was originally, the only thing I was doing was creating an extra piece to my buyer consultation that people could put in their ears. And I was thinking I was going to build a Southern California individual first-time home buyer division as part of my individual team. Next thing you know, pandemic happens. And then starting at the end of 2020 and into 2021, people are calling me, who do you know in Nashville, Dallas, Chicago, Seattle?
I need somebody to help me. I'm a first-time home buyer. Lord of mercy. I can't find anybody who gives me the time of day. I don't know what questions to ask.
Yes.
I don't know what I don't know. David, help me.
So the podcast is just, let me answer all the questions for you for free. And then you can listen to the whole thing and do it on your own. Or if you want to, I have a vetted group. I call them the unicorns because it's that magical, mystical combination of an experienced realtor who actually wants to take the time. Who cares? And I got to tell you, over 6 years, I've fired more people than I have hired because not everyone understands it. Or most importantly, not everyone has the systems in place so that the first-time home buyer doesn't become all-consuming.
Right.
And
this is like Jerry Maguire moment, fewer clients, less money, like
exactly.
That's the fear as a realtor. And if you're a buyer out there, we're not pulling punches. This is the truth. Buyer agents are like, well, I don't want to work with these guys because their budget's low and they're going to take up a bunch of time. But if you're a really great agent, you can sort of have this one first sit down meeting that like calms everybody down. And then all of a sudden it's like, yes, we're going to give you information over time, but it's like, there's so many concerns and questions that are less important, but like you get so stressed out as a first-time home buyer that you lose track. You get stuck and you're lost in the forest. Yeah.
Now we're 6 years into this. And so what I've done is I've told all of my unicorns, we find out 72% of the people waited too long. And 72% of the people over 6 years, they're under contract in 3.2 months. But for the other, if they reach out to me and they say, we're going to be like a year or a year and a half. And I go, cool, let me connect you with someone. Yeah. Guess what? And that's because
it's as soon as you clear the fog.
Yeah.
They think it's going to take a year and a half. Turns out they just needed the right agent.
Because anybody who listens that long to me in their ears, God bless them for dealing with that. But anyone who goes through that and then reaches out to me are probably further and over-researched. But what I've done is I've created something that I call the last lease ever. And any agent and any lender can do this. It's exactly what you said. I tell anybody out there, I'm like, look, wherever you are in the process, give us 90 minutes, and then we're going to touch base with you once a month. And so it's 45 minutes with the realtor and then 45 minutes with a lender that gets referred to you by the realtor. Friends don't let friends use online lenders. And then what we do is we say, great, here's where you are in your credit score, your debt, and your savings right now. To reach your goals, those numbers need to be 1, 2, and 3. And then in the meantime, we'll check in with you in a month. So the realtor and the lender are not wasting a lot of time, but in the meantime, there are 360 episodes they can go listen to for all their questions they have, like you said, that are future questions. They can satisfy it right now. And it was creating that educational platform and then helping realtors understand making a pipeline of first-time home buyers doesn't mean you're showing properties every week to someone who doesn't have a loan approval or isn't going to have a loan approval in 6 months. It's creating a teaching education systematized platform.
Yeah, I love this so much. I mean, I don't want to turn this into an infomercial, but I think the message that I want to send out, and then I have a question about kind of the unknown. It's that people want to rush into this. They want to rush into this. You're a home buyer. You want to buy this home so badly that you probably you spend more time planning your vacation than you do mapping out what is the most important thing. Like, take a little extra time to and don't read Zillow reviews necessarily, but like in my research, 46% of buyers sort of just look for a broker and they want to get into this. And what we're saying and what I'm hearing you say, and I just want to echo it, is take the time at the front end to get educated in the way that works for you. Not everybody's a data researcher. Some people are like, just give me the basics, and I'm going to find someone I trust, delegate and do the rest. And that's fine. but you have to do enough research to be partnered with somebody who speaks your language. So in your travels, what are the common mistakes? Like what's the thing that like either a misconception or, a myth that somebody comes to say, what's the thing that like so commonly happens that gets in the way that you often are like, okay, let's clear that out first. Like, what's that thing?
Well, I don't know if you meant to do it, but you answered the question with your preamble to the question. It's absolutely your average researching. There are the first-time buyers who know nothing, and their biggest mistake is to get to HGTV first and start thinking about all that and not thinking about their finances. The people who have things a little bit more together, exactly what you said. I could guarantee you, if you went and surveyed 100 first-time home buyers who said they found their agent on a Google search, 98 of them would, if you ask them, break down how many hours you've been researching, how do I get the best interest rate? Break down how many hours you've been researching, how do I look for a home? Now break down how many hours you spent vetting and interviewing your realtor. Number one mistake.
Right. So what is it? 80? I think the number, it was in the 80% range or even higher who hire the first agent they meet. Now, I'm not saying that, and by the way, great agents can be new. Terrible agents can be doing this for 50 years.
Totally.
Like there's no, I'm not being ageist. I'm not being experiencist. I'm not saying like you have to hire somebody who's been doing this for a long time necessarily, but you do have to find someone who cares and speaks your language and listens how they need to communicate to you so that you feel comfortable, that you feel heard and seen and understood. Okay. So I answered the question a little bit. That's great. And I don't want to get in the weeds on the mortgage piece, but how do you know that your advice, is sort of in the interest of first-time home buyers? It just, I don't want to be combative against the rest of the industry, but, you're focused on relationships. You're not necessarily focused on the transaction. Relationship first, transaction second, and then ultimately that helps. But you focus totally on the consumer's needs, and yet it works. Like, how did you know? Are you getting pushback from the industry? It just seems like such an obvious to me, and I've sold $2 billion of real estate in New York over 20 years.
Yeah.
Based exactly on these principles. And it just shocks me that you go into like a certain real estate board from whatever city or town or county, and it's just transaction questions. Do you give people a questionnaire that they fill out before they show up to you? Like, how do you make sure that things stay on track when people are getting so much noise, like you said, from HGTV or other places?
When it comes to finding agents that are, there's just a matchmaking game. And I could go deep into this, but I don't want to get into a real estate bashing thing unless you want me to.
No, please. I want to help people. I don't care. It can be broken, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But then if there are lots of great agents in lots of markets, then it isn't broken. You just have to find the right people.
Precisely. So if people really want to pull back the curtain and understand, the brokers, the big brokers who have multiple different agents, your Century 21s, your Remaxes, your Real, your EXP, all those guys, their consumer is the realtor. It is not the people buying and selling homes. They make their money by recruiting agents and then getting those agents to do things with the bare minimum of training and the promise of glory and financial riches. And if you don't believe me, 87% of agents quit in 5 years. The number one thing that's wrong with the real estate industry is the training is putrid. And my 15-year-old is getting ready to do her learner's permit test. She'll be able to pass the real estate exam in California by pretty much the same amount of studying. So that's that side of it. On the other side of it, the big part that they're missing in the training is understanding how to do seller concessions, understanding how to write a bidding war with an escalation clause or with a funny number in there, or it's that type of experience in training. Mortgage interest rate buy downs, all of that stuff has been used. I have people that are buying $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 houses that are coming in all in $12,000 down payment and closing costs. I had a guy that had never owned a home before. His family had never owned a home before, bought a $300,000 house, and his total in was $4,000. And he was paying $1,800 a month in rent, or $1,900 in rent, and his mortgage PITI was $1,800. Now he went to a lender, and the lender said, save money and call me in 6 months. Then he came to us, and we went, let's look big picture. So the training behind that is the thing that could change the broken part of the industry. But the numbers game that the brokers play is the easier way for them to make money, because you and I know those new people, they make 50% off them. The experienced agents, they're only making 20%.
Yeah. By the way, listeners out there, we just threw like 1,000 different terms at you. So I understand if you're like, what? And my head is spinning and I don't know what you're talking about. But the bottom line to all of this is that you need to find agents who really care about you. And when you find that person, you'll know it. It'll feel different inside. Like, wait a minute, this person isn't trying to sell me. This person wants to see me in a home that I love. It's a different vibe, and you have to trust your gut. And what happens, obviously, it's you plus somebody else most of the time. And there's a chance that that person is communicating in a different way. You need to be able to step back after that meeting and go, how do we feel about this? Feelings, people, feelings. It's not about dollars and cents. It's about feelings. Because when you feel comfortable, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I can borrow money from my Aunt Jane or whatever. You figure out the ways that you're going to make all this work instead of being mistrustful and nervous the whole way through, which is no way to buy a home. All right. I want to get into some rapid fire questions, David. I'm loving this so much. You are awesome. You are a good human being. Thank you for everything you're doing. All right. What is the most favorite part of the home buying process for your clients?
There's two different ones. When I'm working with people individually, boots on the ground here in Southern California, everyone says that, giving them the keys, that's very sad. Mine is the revelation. All of this stuff that we're talking about, the emotional output and outburst that happens when somebody explains the creativity and options behind all the math, and to see them go, oh, that is my favorite.
Because they realize it's possible. They go, oh, I can have this. I can have this.
And then every other emotional conversation changes along the way. It's like, okay, well, you were contributing $1,200 to your 401k. So now we're figuring out that buying a home is a diversification of your portfolio. You're not taking away from your retirement by reducing that contribution to $600. Now you have $600 more you can put into a mortgage. And suddenly that high interest rate payment that's freaking you out doesn't freak you out so much right now. So, and then on the how to buy a home platform side of things, one of the things I do is I interview people from all over the country and just hearing their stories, like the couple who lived in a van for 7 years, and like the one of them got hurt at work, and they were walking around one night and they both got robbed, and they were like, and mugged and beat up. And they're like, we're going to call David and figure out to buy a house in a better neighborhood. Bought a house, the girl who bought a place in New Jersey so that her mom could come live with her, because her mom was in the middle of escaping from Ukraine, and she had no idea she could do it. So to hear people's emotional, the impact that stability and control brings in their life, that's huge.
All right. I have one more question for you. First some home buyers, they doubt they're ready. They often doubt they're ready. What's the one thing you tell them, or what's the one thing you would tell our listeners to help them overcome their fears and take that leap into home ownership?
I'm going to cheat in two. The first thing you said at one point, you don't know what you don't know. I never say that being someone that facilitates and helps somebody buys a home is as important as heart surgery. But I always use this analogy. If you needed heart surgery, would you spend a year online and Reddit going down rabbit holes to learn how to hold the scalpel and do the job? Or would you spend all your time figuring out what's the best hospital and what's the best heart surgeon? That's the big mistake that people can correct.
Drop the mic. Everybody thinks they're a realtor, when what they need to do is focus on like what it is that the right person, the right partner, and what would I love?
The connection. Like you said, it's that connection. It's too many people start with the emotional. They don't get the tactical. It's the combination between technical, but make sure that emotional's there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. David, you are a good man and you're doing good work, and I'm delighted to have you here. So thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, sir.
That's it for this episode of The Pursuit of Home. I hope today's conversation gave you insight, clarity, and maybe even a new way to think about your own home search. If you enjoyed the episode, please take a moment to follow, rate, and review the show. It really helps us reach more people on their own journey to home ownership. And when you're looking to dive deeper into your own home buying journey, don't forget The Pursuit of Home, a real estate guide to achieving the American dream, is now available wherever you buy your books. I share real-life strategies and insights to help you make empowered decisions in today's market so that you will find a house that supports you in every area of your life. The Pursuit of Home is proudly produced by Fame, the B2B podcast production agency. Find The Pursuit of Home on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere you listen to your podcasts. And if you want to connect, you can find me on social media or at magneticre.com. Until then, happy home hunting.